So welcome everybody to the lecture Supplier Management. Today's December 9th, 2024. Today we will look at supply chain game theory. So we apply game theory to supply chain management. This is basically strategic decision making. Okay, with some examples. So first thing, I'm going to give you an introduction about game theory, GT, okay. And then we look at some examples. So we explore what game theory offers. To a strategic framework for decision making in supply chains. We include examples like cooperation, competition, risk sharing, that can be modeled in supply chain networks. Okay. So first the basics, game theory basics. Okay, so game theory analyzes strategic interaction between players let's say, for example, buyers and suppliers. Components include key components include players, which is are entities making decisions. So, for instance, two suppliers competing for a contract. Then strategies. So here we have actions available to players. Okay, actions can be to set a price or improve quality, or the payoff. The payoff is outcomes from the strategy. Okay, so profit or increase market share or something like that. Okay, so basically we have some examples. That of game theory models in supply chain management. So let's say, I mean, these are standardized. You can, of course, look at them in more detail. There is a whole theory behind, but one is called the prisoner's dilemma in supplier relationships. Okay. So the scenario a buyer and a supplier can cooperate, strategy 1, or defect, strategy 2. Okay, so defect is not cooperate. So in the cooperation, what happens? Both agree to cooperate on reducing cost. Okay, for instance, sharing demand forecast. And for not cooperation, so defection. So in the cooperation, both share information, and then because they share information, they can increase quality, decrease cost. Okay, so and if in that defection one party benefits from the loss of the other. For instance, supplier raises prices and or buyer delays payment. Okay. So one important concept, this is an example, of course, super simple. One important concept in game theory is the payoff matrix. And you should learn to interpret this, okay? So let's paint the payoff matrix and let's interpret it. So buyer cooperates or buyer defects, so not cooperate. And then supplier cooperate or supplier defects. Let's see how much each party is winning for each case. Let me paint the matrix, payoff matrix. Okay, so if the supplier cooperate and the buyer cooperates, the buyer wins 10 and the supplier wins 10. So if both cooperate, means if buyer and supplier cooperate, both win 10. Okay? If supplier cooperate and buyer defects, the buyer wins 2, supplier wins 2 and buyer wins 15. Okay, so 2, 15 means if buyer defects and supplier cooperate, supplier wins 2 and buyer wins 15. So the first number is for supplier, the second number is for defect. If the supplier defects and the buyer cooperates, it's the other way around. Means if buyer cooperate and supplier defects, supplier wins 15 and buyer wins 2. And then if both defect, there is 5 and 5. Means if both defect, both win 5. So if they don't cooperate to each other. Okay? Any questions? Any questions about this? No. So the best, this is called the prisoner's dilemma. Okay. So there are many interpretations on this, but this is the interpretation for supplier and buyer relationship. So the analysis is like this: the best collective outcome is both cooperate. So 10-10. Okay, so this is the best collective outcome, that both cooperate. And then the so-called Nash equilibrium is that both defect. Okay. So what is a Nash equilibrium? The Nash equilibrium, or NE, or at the Nash equilibrium, better said, each player strategy is the best response to the strategies chosen by other players. Okay. So in simpler terms, at a Nash equilibrium, no player can improve their payoff by changing the strategy alone. You see, if both are defecting, so they're not cooperating, and then the supplier decides to start cooperating, so he changes strategies from defect to cooperate, he will go from 5 to 2. And the same thing happens with the supplier. If he goes from defect to cooperate, for the buyer, sorry, if he goes from defect to cooperate, then he goes from 5 to 2. So no single player can change or improve their payoff by changing the strategy alone. The Nash equilibrium represents a stable state of the game. Because no player wants to deviate from their strategy. And that's why it's called a prisoner's dilemma, because actually there is no incentive in changing the strategy and going from 5-5. I mean, they could win more by cooperating, but there is no incentive because they would need to change both at the same time their behavior from defect to cooperation. Okay? So the key insight in the prisoner's dilemma, and this is very, very common, is without trust, the Nash equilibrium leads to suboptimal outcomes. Okay? So building trust or long-term incentives can break this cycle. Okay? Any questions? Is it understandable? Did you see game theory before in your study in the bachelor time? Hello? Okay, so maybe, okay, good. Another example, 2.2 is Nash equilibrium in supplier price competition. So the scenario here, two suppliers compete for a buyer's business by offering discounts. Okay, each supplier, I mean, these are games, okay, so you just need to set up the scenario and the rules. So each supplier must choose between two strategies. L, which means low price, and H, high price. Okay. The buyer awards contracts based on price and service level. Okay, so the payoff matrix, this is the scenario. The payoff matrix is like this. Supplier B, high price, supplier B, low price, supplier A, high price, supplier A, low price, and then there is this matrix. Okay, depending on the values of the matrix, the problem is different, so you might want to think about it more deeply. So here we have 8, 8. So if both have high price, they earn 8 each. So if the supplier B has A has high price and supplier B has low price, supplier B wins 10, supplier A wins 4, same logic as before, then 10, 4, and then 6, 6. Okay, this is basically the same issue as before. So the analysis goes like this. If supplier A chooses to lower the price, suppliers B best response is to also lower the price. Okay, L. So the Nash equilibrium 6, where both choose to lower the price, right? So what is the key insight? This is another version of the prisoner's dilemma. What is the key insight? Competitive pricing reduces profit for both suppliers. Okay. So the strategy is differentiation. For instance, by value-added services. Could shift the game to higher payoffs. Okay. So, any questions? No? This is the Nash equilibrium concept again in competition. What another example? 2.3. Something called the Stackelberg model. So, which is called the leader follower dynamics. Okay. This is again something very classical. You have a scenario with a dominant buyer. The leader sets order quantities. And suppliers which are the followers respond by setting prices. Okay. So an example. The buyer needs, let's say, 1,000 units. And sets a max price of 50 euro per unit. And then to suppliers compete by adjusting cost to meet the price. Okay. Then there's a game behind, and the key insight here is that the leader, in this case the buyer, influences market dynamics by setting thresholds that drive follower, so supplier behavior. Okay. Questions? No. So, what are the strategic applications of all this? Well, there are many. Okay, so basically, you could make a career on becoming a game theory expert for supplier management relations and make a lot of money. There's a lot of math behind it and a whole theory behind it. It's not so easy, as we have seen here. Let me put you some examples, okay? So strategic applications. One is price wars. Okay, so balance competition. We can say that profit equals revenue minus cost. Okay, this is a general rule. If supplier A price equals, let's say, 50 euro per unit, and supplier B's price is 48 euro per unit, just imagine this, and then this is in time 1. In time 2, supplier A reduces price to 46 euro per unit. Then the logical consequence is that in time 3, supplier B tries to match or undercut supplier A's price. Okay. So here the key insight is that game theory reveals when aggressive pricing erodes profits, encouraging suppliers to differentiate rather than compete. Okay. So you might want to be, if you're a supplier, you want to be different. You want to be offering something more rather than just compete on price, because a pure competition on price, will lead to everybody losing, as we saw above. Okay. Does it make sense? Questions? Fragen? No. So the second example or strategic application 3.2 would be something like something called auction-based sourcing. So in this scenario, a buyer runs a reverse auction where 3 suppliers bid for a contract. So supplier A, B, and C. And their respective prices are 50 euros a unit and 47 euros a unit and 45 euros a unit. So in this case, if you would be the buyer, you would get, you would give the, I mean, if you're looking only to price, of course, outcome in a very simple world, supplier C wins, but A and B are not going to stay steady, will reassess their costs for future competitiveness. Okay. So if you're an expert in game theory, and you should look into it, the key insight here is game theory helps predict bidding behavior. enabling buyers to secure better prices, I guess. Okay. Yeah. So this is important. Okay. Questions on this example? I mean, I tried to really leave it at a very simple level. You can imagine this can get really tricky and complex if you start getting information to the suppliers, or you start feeding some information that can rig the game. But in a way, these are the basics. You should look into it if you're interested. Okay, so some case study. Super simple case study in automotive supply chain. Let's say a car manufacturer relies on two tier 1 suppliers. Supplier A with capacity 10,000 units per month, and cost 50 euros per unit. And supplier B has a capacity of 5,000 units per month, and a cost of 55 euros per unit. So scenario, a disruption, let's say a war, reduces supplier A's capacity by 50%. Okay, demand is 12,000 units per month. Solution would be, of course, relocate demand to supplier B, despite higher cost, because otherwise you go despite is with E. Otherwise you go and you lose customers. So the cost analysis would be a total cost of 5,000 units times 50 euro. I guess I need to change this capacity to 7,000. Otherwise it doesn't work. Plus 7,000 times 55. Okay, so this is supplier A, this is supplier B. This equals 635. Euro. And the key insight here is combine network analysis with game theory. So remember network analysis from last week with game theory. Predicts cost trade-offs. Under disruptions, okay? Of course, this is a very simple example, just with two suppliers and just one cannot deliver anymore. But you see the concept, can everything related to game theory or network analysis can be represented with mathematics. We don't see it in this course because you wish so, but all this can be quantified, and because it can be quantified, it can be made, can be used for valuable insights in the business. If you want to, you can contact me offline and I can give you books and more insights on the quantification, okay? So wenn ihr wollt, kann ich gerne mehr Informationen zur Verfügung stellen, diese Kiste quantifizierbar zu machen. Okay? So, conclusions. Game theory provides a structured approach to understanding and optimizing supplier relationships, through mathematical models and strategic applications. Organizations can balance competition and cooperation. This can potentially enhance efficiency and build more resilient supply chains. Okay. If you like to watch movies, you might want to look at a movie called Beautiful Mind. It's about John Nash, which is the guy from the Nash equilibrium, okay? I like the movie, so you might even have seen it. Okay. Anyway, I hope you found the lecture interesting. You have any questions? No. Okay.